All right, so a neighbor brought me this Husqvarna 125B blower, said it wasn't getting fuel, which was, I guess, his assumption. But really, it basically didn't start easily, and it didn't work properly for him. So I got it started easily enough, even without any manipulation, just being a little bit persistent. And I started blowing, and it actually really sounded fine. And so I blew for about 10 minutes with it, and then it kind of started acting up. And I decided to drain the gas, and while I was draining the gas, the fuel filter came out of my hand. So these fuel filters are basically weighted so that as you use the machine on its side, like a chainsaw, the fuel filter always falls to the bottom where the fuel will be. And this is what a partially or, well, really plugged fuel filter looks like. It still works. Here's another one I have. So these things should basically look perfectly clear and clean. I'll give you a quick example. So this is a brand new one. When they're wet, they change color a little bit, but they're still consistently, they're not like splotchy like that. Sometimes when people say look for a bad fuel filter, it can be difficult to know what one looks like if you've not seen them before, but those are some examples. And this fell off because the fuel line was rotted, and these are pieces of the fuel line. You can see the difference. This is the part that was in the air, basically, the fuel vapor above the liquid level of the fuel tank, and this is what was down there. And they get real brittle and squishy. They can collapse and they can break like they did there. So I recommend, if you're going to replace lines, use the really good stuff called Tygon. You can get this for like, I don't know, $1 a foot. I mean, it's cheap. You can go to Ace Hardware and you can buy it by the foot. I bought them out of the last little bit that they had, but this is much higher quality than what you get in like the carb kits from Amazon. It's really not more expensive. It's just a matter of having it on hand. So if you do a lot of this stuff, buy a couple feet of it, of the different diameters. This is the most common diameter. And when it comes to installing these things, they're just a friction fit, so they can be a real pain. And what I recommend doing is take a pair of scissors and slice up the hose like that, like I have here. This is 2 cuts. I basically cut it in half and then cut that in half too. And give yourself a good tongue. If you're like me, you don't like seeing things go to waste, but give yourself an inch or two. And what will happen then is you can, obviously this would still be attached to the end of that in case that wasn't obvious, but you can basically just easily push that right through the hole in the fuel tank. And then depending on what type of pliers you have and the shape of the fuel tank, you can then reach in and grab that. I also recommend lubing the line up with a little bit of Vaseline. It's a petroleum-based product, so it washes out easily. It doesn't plug anything. And then you basically pull and push as much as you need, and then you pull it up through the mouth and cut off the end, throw it away, and then hook on your fuel filter and then pull back up out of the tank the excess. So that's how you get these things installed easily. The more, this is about 1.5 inches. The more you give yourself, the easier it is, but obviously the more you waste. So you got to find the balance between that. And yeah, now it's running just fine. I'm just doing the tune on the carburetor, but that's what bad fuel filters look like. That's what rotted out fuel lines can look like from cheap fuel line material as well as ethanol. Those are the kind of symptoms that you get, rough running. And basically what happens is at low RPMs, the fuel demand is low, so a plugged filter or a partially plugged filter might still work, but then as the demand gets higher and higher and higher, at some point this becomes a bottleneck, just like a car accident on the highway, and the fuel can't get through. So hope that helps somebody. Good luck.